Okay, so we're holding the last Siman of Taaruvot, Siman Kuf Yud Aleph. We already covered the first two seifim. We'll do a short review and then go on to the next couple seifim. Very interesting scenario that we're covering, and that is that we may have a situation where the suffix is as follows. You have two kedeiros, one is heter and one is aser. You have two pieces, one is heter and one is aser. And the suffix is that the pieces that fell in, we don't know where they fell in. We know one is aser, one is mutter. We know one kedeira is mutter and one is aser. So what's interesting about this situation is that we make an assumption, which is a big chiddush. There's no more din of bittul here per se. I mean, of course, there's bittul whenever something falls into a certain amount that will cancel it out. I mean, bittul is bittul. Here, it's very interesting. What we're saying is we're going to make an assumption that the heter fell into the heter, the iser fell into the iser, and we're therefore safe. We don't have to resort to the regular, typical dinim of bittul. There's roiv or shishim. We're beyond that. It's an assumption. It's a complete assumption that it's like we have help mishamayim here. That's what we're saying. I mean, otherwise, what is an assumption? How could you make such an assumption? Why say an assumption that the heter went to the heter and the iser went to the iser? I mean, based on what? Why should we make such an assumption? So in the beginning we had three tziyurim. What I just shared with you was this tziyur number 1, where you have two of each, two kedeiros, one iser, one heter, and one piece of heter and one piece of iser. So we're saying, you know what? They both fell in. The question is, which one fell where? And what's the problem? The problem is that I may not have the required amount, obviously, in the heter to be mevatel the iser, because if I do, then what's the problem? Even if the iser fell into the heter, I would be okay. But what I'm saying here, what the Halacha is saying, is that we don't have to worry about that. We can safely make that assumption, that the iser went to the iser, the heter went to the heter. Then you have the other two scenarios that we covered. Scenario number 2, and that is that you have a kedeira shel heter, right? And you have two chatichas, two pieces, one of iser, one of heter. One of them fell in. I don't know which one. It could have been the iser, could have been the heter. And what do I say? I say the heter is the one that fell in. Toilin shel heter naflo. Afilu ena heter rabba ala iser. That's the chiddush. The Mechaber says even if the heter is not more than the iser, that's okay. I make an assumption that the piece of heter is the one that fell into the kedeira shel heter. I mean, this could happen. You know, somebody you left in the kitchen wasn't watching, and it could have been, by the way, the maid. You know, wasn't paying attention. It could have been the balabasta. Oh, there was a piece of treif chicken here. We explained these kinds of things happen. You were supposed to throw it away. You didn't. Otherwise, what is a piece of treif meat doing in that? Oh, which one was it? Well, we don't know. We can't recognize the difference. They're both the same size, the same color, the same weight. We make an assumption. The heter fell in, and the one that's sitting there is the iser. The third scenario was you had two kedeiros and one chaticha. It happens to be that one chaticha is the iser chaticha. And the two kedeiros, one is heter and one is iser. We also make an assumption that the iser chaticha fell into the iser kedeira. Wow. So this is again an assumption. And this assumption is called toilin, or she'ani oimer. She'ani oimer meaning that I assume, toilin, that the iser went to the iser or the heter went to the heter. Then we don't have a problem. What's the makor of this? What's this based on? So we have a Taz and a Shach. They both say a little bit differently. The Taz says that this heter of toilin, or she'ani oimer, is a greater kula than a plain sfeika d'Rabbanan. Because we know by now the suffix d'Rabbanan lekula, for the most part. You have a suffix under the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan were not so machmir as to, if you have a suffix legabe there iser, that you have to be machmir, right? So if you have a suffix under the Rabbanan, it's a suffix d'Rabbanan lekula. That's what the Shach says here. The Shach says that the basis for the heter on these halachas is safek derabanan lekula. That's important because we will see that therefore this can only apply when the whole situation involves isure derabanan, as we will learn today, as opposed to it involves an isur deraisa. You have here a real isur concerning an isur deraisa. So my example actually by chickens would not be a good example. If one of them is treif, then it's an avela. Okay? It would have to be that we're talking about some sort of isur derabanan here. Now, so the Taz explains that what do we learn from this? That the assumption called she'anu toilin, that we assume, is a greater leniency than a safek derabanan. And because it's a greater leniency, we learned last time that it is even possible to allow for it even if you have 50-50. You don't have roiv. You don't need roiv. If you had roiv, that would be great. No, the chidush here is, because we say anu toilin, even if you have 50-50, in other words, you don't have more heter than you have the isser, it would be okay. Even though you may require more, generally speaking, you would require more for purposes of bitul. In this scenario where we say anu toilin, it's okay to have 50-50.
Is there actually by Niddah Rabbanan a king? It's because bitul is the Raisa.
Right.
But Niddah Rabbanan has to do with the Raisa because it's the Rabbanan.
Right.
So from where would there be by Niddah Rabbanan unless Rabbanan were voice, a little Baroiv works by them maybe?
Well, if it's yovesh beyovesh, it would still use the klalim of bitul beroiv of the oraisa.
So, but that's now a rabbinical enactment. These klalim apply in this case.
Where? Which?
By Niddah Rabbanan.
Yes. You would still need a roiv or shishin, depending on what we're talking about. Right? There are some situations.
So the Raisa you don't need it.
There are shiurim derabanan
that mimic the Raisa.
No, not that mimic, but that are greater than the shear that is required with the Raisa.
That's why I was asking.
Right.
I was wondering whether perhaps the Roiv doesn't apply because it's a Rabbanan. So the Raisa you don't need a bit. So you don't need a little Baroiv because the Raisa there's nothing forbidden here.
No, what you can say is that sometimes with the Rabbanan the shear deraisa is not enough, or there's no bittul at all. Remember, by davar chashuv.
No, but my question is,
yes,
I have an Issa Rabbanan.
Okay.
The Raisa there is no. It's only the Rabbanan in this.
That's correct.
So Raisa I don't need a Baroiv. I don't need nothing.
I don't need nothing. Right.
So now all I need to do to be mevatel according to Rabbanan, not according to the Raisa.
Yes.
Now bittul Baroiv is bittul the Oraisa.
Right.
But since I don't have an Isser de Oraisa here,
right.
I don't need a bittul de Oraisa here. So my question was, does that mean that I'm stuck with, or not I'm stuck, but that the only form of bittul that applies in such a case is the Rabbanan of 60, because I never had an Isser de Oraisa, I don't have a bittul de Oraisa.
But why would, but if you have Yavesh Yavesh, you would still have a din of bittul.
But then it would be the Rabbanan that I need.
That you need that amount, because we still, bittul b'raiv is still a bittul. It's that only that the Rabbanan required the different shiurim for.
So according to whom would it misbatel by Roiv? By bittul the Rabbanan? Who requires a bittul b'raiv?
The Rabbanan, though.
Oh, so the Rabbanan require bittul the Roiv, but it's not sufficient.
No, it is sufficient.
It is sufficient.
Yeah, and that is what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. We've spoken about it in the past, but I'm going to review that point. Where you have a situation of something that is asur midoraisa, that is nisgalgel to an isur d'Rabbanan.
That's
Why?
It's galgal.
Right. It has become an issue. It has become a d'Rabbanan issue.
But it began as a d'oraisa.
Because it's in a taaruvot, right? That's the example. It's in a taaruvot now, right? So that's a problem. When we spoke about it in Sfeika, and elsewhere it's mentioned that it's not treated the same as a regular d'Rabbanan. Because if you start off as an isur d'oraisa, you can't say safek d'Rabbanan lekula now. Remember that? There was something that starts off as a d'oraisa and eventually becomes a d'Rabbanan issue because of the shir of bitul, and you have a safek legabed. You don't say, oh well, now it's a safek d'Rabbanan. No, but it was nisgalkel. It started off as an isur, as a safek d'oraisa. It continues to be a safek d'oraisa. That was one of the things that in Sfeika we covered that a lot. That nisgalkel, you don't treat it as a safek d'Rabbanan. So we're going to come back to that. So anyway, it's just important to note that the makor, or the shorish of this heter, of this assumption here, is because, as the Shach says, it's a safek d'Rabbanan lekula, or as the Taz explained, that it's even a greater leniency than safek d'Rabbanan lekula. Sha'ani oimer is even greater. And because it's greater, actually, based on what the Taz says, we can understand why one would be able to be matir on a davar sheyesh lo matiri. The Pri Megadim, by the way, brings it up. Okay, this is all the Rabbanan. So far, so good. What if what we're talking about is a davar sheyesh lo matiri? Remember that? Davar sheyesh lo matiri? Wait, it's going to eventually be mutter. By the Rabbanan, davar sheyesh lo matiri is very, very chomerdik. It's very strict. Right? It's not bottle. It's davar sheyesh lo matiri. However, here, you say that the chidush is it's toilin, and toilin is a greater leniency than a stam sofek the Rabbanon, maybe a davar sheyesh lo matiri would be mutter. So the Pri Megadim is done on this particular point, whether would we say that even a davar sheyesh lo matirin in this scenario would be okay. We would make that assumption.
Does the Shach say it's okay?
Right. There's different there's poskim that speak about it over here. But davar sheyesh lo matirin. I'm not sure. I think the Shach. Let me see here. By Isur Mashu, for example, it appears across the board that everybody is machmer. An Isur Mashu, like Chometz. Chometz that is also b'mashu. Anything that is, the Isur is b'mashu, I guess it's treated differently. Right? Whereas, Davar sheyesh lo matir, or even something that is a D'Rabbanan that has a shoyrish midoraisa, like Vinos shel Akum, that we once talked about, which is in the category of itself. It's called a D'Rabbanan, that the shoyrish of the Isser is a shoyrish. In other words, there is something there that is a deraisa. And it's therefore, it's more chomer, according to some.
Now, how do you determine such a shor? When you say a shor?
You don't have that too often. You have it in a few situations where the Isser that is contemplated, or the Isser that is being presented, is related.
So we have a certain catalog of Isur implies?
Yeah, there are a few.
There's a list.
Yeah, it's a related. The Isur is related to another Isur that is a real deraisa. In this particular case, the Gvinas Akum of today is not really anymore an issue on a deraisa. It's a completely issue on a derabanan. Well, because of the problems involved today in Gvinas Shel Akum, we don't have a real Isur deraisa involved here. Usually not. I mean, depending on the cheese, I guess, right? So even if the cheese is kosher, it's still asur if it's made by goy, right? So the shorish of isurim of gvina is there's a related isur to a deraisa, but presently it's not. What we're dealing with right now, for the most part, the most gvinas is a derabanan. So it's one of those. There's a list, like you said, of a few, not too many. Okay, so they're more chamer. So here, by Isur Mashu, everybody would agree that the case you would not say toilin. This chidush of toilin, if we talk about Isur Mashu, we would not say so. As opposed to davar sheyesh lo matirin, it would be okay. Now, what about chaticha riyul iskabed? Also not a problem. For sure not a problem. Chaticha riyul iskabed, it's only because of the chashivas that the Rabbanan made it asur. So the toilin here, because toilin, as the Taz says, is a big heter, it would do away with that problem too. We would be toile, even if it's a chaticha riyul iskabed. That would not interfere with this. Which is interesting. I mean, that this is a big kula. It's a bigger kula than just a safek d'Rabbanan. Okay. From the three scenarios, we said that the Shach and Taz a little bit argue as to which one is more chamer. Number 2, number 3. In number 2, you have the heter kedera for sure, having something fall into it. The Taz says that's more chamer. And the Shach said that the third scenario is stricter, because you have an isser, for sure an isser, falling into one of the gederas. We don't know if it fell into the heter or not. Whereas the Taz would learn, well, I don't know if anything fell into it to begin with. All right, different way of looking at it. One nafkamina that we gave was what the Shach says. A big chiddush in the Shach is that in case 2, which is more lenient according to him, what happens if the 2 chatichas got mixed up before they fell in? Remember, we're having a piece fall in, one piece falling in. We don't know if it was the heter or the iser falling in. they got mixed up before. Okay? So that's a question of is chazik isura or not. Because what's the problem? Because if the two get mixed up together, then they're not batul chad bechad. If they're not batul chad bechad, it's like a form of chazik isura. The isur is already there. It's like a vada isur, and now it's falling in. What do we say then?
So we had.
Yeah. Would it make a difference or not? So most of the Mesekele, most of the foreign, especially the Krisi place in pre-Chodosh, they said it's not a big problem. It doesn't make a difference. Never makes a difference. Why doesn't it make a difference? Because according to the pre-Chodosh especially, even if it's Chazik Isura, this Chazik Isura does not interfere. Remember with Sfek Sveika. Pre-Chodosh says it's Chazik Isura is not a problem, does not stand in the way, even if you start off with something that has the Chazaka of being Isur. And these two pieces, if they get mixed in and there's no Roiv, and let's say Niddah, we're assuming Niddah, let's make it tough. We know they're mixed. And then somehow one falls in other words, it would still not bother you. In other words, the heter of toilin, which piece fell where, is so strong that it doesn't make a difference. Especially according to those who hold this chazik isur is not a problem. But the shach, of course, makes a chiluk between the various shiurim where it does make a difference and where it does not. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, I believe that for the first few seifim, the shach would be machmer only in the case number 2. Because in the case number 2, where the chatichas are mixed, and what we're saying is that one of them fell into the kedera. Since the two of them are mixed and there's no roivs, so you say that it's osir. And now a form of vada isur is falling in. So even though tzir beis was the more lenient one, according to the shach, why was it more lenient? Because we don't know for sure if the isur fell in. It could have been the heter fell in, according to the shach. Right? In tzir number 3, the shach says the isur for sure fell. Okay? And all you have is one piece in tzir 3. You have one isur falling into the heter or the isur. So shach says, for sure fell in. But even in tzir beis, where she says is more lenient, once you have the isur and the heter mixed up together before they fall in, that's like a vada isur falling in. You follow me?
Sure.
You have so that's what the shach says.
It's an issue because it's the other piece. It's an issue because it mixed with the other piece in your heart.
Right. Anyway, so according to the shach, in the other situations, we're obviously talking about, according to him, that they were not mixed, and that's according to him, of course. We're talking about a situation where they did not mix. Okay. We also spoke about last time about a situation that the Pesach Shuvah brings down, that if you have a suffix Yisur, and this is an important point as we learn the next Seifim, which are even more interesting than this one. The last few Seifim of this Siman are very interesting. So I think the Pesach Shuvah was important. If you have a situation which is a suffix Yisur, not a Vada Yisur, in a K'dera, here we said, treif, kosher. Huh?
The rice or the Rabbah?
The Raisa, yeah. But it's a suffix Yisur. We're not talking about right now the Isur falling in, which is a D'Rabbanan, right? You have a suffix Isur, okay? And it fell in. We're also going to make the assumption that it fell into the one that has a suffix. So keep this in mind as we continue through the Siman. Very interesting point. That not only do we say the heter of toiling of assumption when you have a Vada Isur, Vada head, you know where it fell? It fell into the Isur. What if that is not a real Isser, it's only a suffix Isser? Which means that I can't eat.
Because the suffix, because of the opinion that suffix Doisa is a Rabbanan, in there as well. We had an opinion that suffix Doisa the Humra is a Rabbanan.
A good way of looking at it, and that's how we're going to be explaining the following Seif, a good way of understanding this, and it's an important way of thinking, it will help us think, is that the way that Toilen is working here is that we're making an assumption that the Isser, or the problem piece, is falling in wherever it will not be mekalkel.
Right. But that assumption...
Wherever it will not ruin.
And that we can make on a Da'araisa?
No. No, if we're going to be talking about a piece,
right.
That's the next seif. Is it the rice and not a derabbanan? No. This is only because we're dealing with, remember, only so far, as we're going to see, because we're dealing with Isura derabbanan, do we allow for this kula called toilin.
Okay.
Just as the piece of tshuva brings down this chidush, this tshuva, that even if that problem kedera is only a suffix, but it's still the problem compared to the two, I can still make that assumption it went to the problem kedera, and it's not ruining or affecting the heter kedera. Okay.
So I'm wondering, according to the opinion of those that a suffix d'oraisa is a rabbanan dikadin, a suffix d'oraisa lechumra is a rabbanan dikadin.
Right.
Suffix is so according to them, you could also say toy on a suffix d'oraisa.
Yeah, but we don't.
Even according to that opinion.
Yes, we don't. No. Interesting. Yeah. In other words, it only, and we learned it out. We learned it out from, and I'm going to talk about it. We learned it out from Gemara Mesachim. We learned it from a few places that this chiddush only applies in the pure derabbanan case.
So whether it's allowed to as derabbanan.
Yeah. Remember last week we even mentioned the famous machlekes legabe truma b'zman hazeh. Truma b'zman hazeh. If you live in Eretz Yisrael, as you know, you have to deal with a whole bunch of additional issues in kashrus besides bugs. Besides kosher treif, besides cholavak, over there you have to deal with trumas meisos and orla. Even though orla is a problem here too, there it's more of a problem. So when you look at the hashgacha, the teudah, the certificate on a restaurant or a store, makolet, you should say lelo chashash v'is, lelo chashash trumas and meisos, orla and things like that. You buy fruits and vegetables, you may have a problem there. What's wrong with buying peppers and tomatoes, you're saying? You don't have any questions when you go to Fairfax, when you go to Raleigh, fruits and vegetables. If it's wrong, you have to be aware of this. Even kids, when they have a suffix, they know how to take off. There was a whole nusach in the city that they say. I remember when I was in Israel, I used to keep a dime, matbeah, in my tefillin bag. A lot of people do, any time you had a suffix, they got something that you had to be poide. Or to be mechalal on that dime, on that coin. And then eventually dispose of it after it was filled or used to the maximum. Very interesting. If you're in this world, you have to be aware of these things. My son calls me, well, how do I do it? Say, look at the siddur, do it a couple times, you get used to it. Anyway, you don't do it on Shabbos. You do it before Shabbos, obviously. You can't be metaken, yeah. All right, so we got the Seif Beis. In Seif Beis, the Mechaber explained that all of this that we said of Toilin, afilu a heter rabba ala isar. Afilu eina heter rabba ala isar. Even though there's not more heter than the isar, which is another chidush over here. As long as it's 50-50. Aval ima isar rabba ala heter ein Toilin lahakel. So the Mechaber, and everybody pretty much agrees with the Mechaber, except for the Shach on one case, that if you have to have at least 50-50. If you have more Isser than the Heter, you're not going to say Toilin, I'm sorry. In other words, the Koyach of Toilin that we assume the Heter went to the Heter, the Isser went to the Isser, or the Isser fell into the Isser and it did not affect the Heter, that is not only in a Derabbanan situation, it also, there's an additional condition. It cannot be more Isser than Heter. It could be up to 50-50, which is a big Chiddush. That's the koyach of toiling. That even otherwise, if I had more heter, then what's the problem, right? So I don't need 60. I need roiv. No, the heter is even 50-50, which is interesting. And the shach says that here the shach is machmer in some cases. Here is mekel. In case number 2, remember case number 2? Case number 2 that he says is less strict than case number 3. What's the nafkamina? Here's for him. This would be a nafkamina. That in case you had more Isser than Heter, in case number 2, it would still be Mekel the Shach. How do you have that? Remember, case number 2 was that you have a Kedera of Heter, and you have 2 pieces, one Isser and one Heter. You don't know which one fell in. We assume the Heter fell in, not the Isser. The Shach says, in case number 2, even if the Isser is greater than the Heter, you would allow for this assumption. Why? Whoever says the Isser fell in. I don't know for sure that the Isser. In case number 3, he would agree. He agrees. Case number 3, we have only a piece of Isser falling into a Gdera of Heter or a Gdera of Isser.
So who says that it fell in?
But it's a real Isser. It's a real Isser. So it's a real Isser. I don't allow for. I will.
This is not what the real Isser is legabe. It fell, but legabe what I have in my kedera in front of me, I don't know if I have an Isser.
Right.
And with respect to that, it doesn't make a difference whether an Isser and a heter fell, because I don't know if the Isser or the heter fell inside, or only an Isser fell, and I don't know if it fell into the kira.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between the shach and the taf.
Yeah,
right.
I understand, but I don't understand where it comes from.
Yeah, but you understand that the gabed, his kula, his kula is a big chiddush, that even if there's more Isser than heter, it would be possible in one case, in case number 2, where he says, maybe, maybe the Isser never fell to begin with. So why do I have to be concerned that there's more Isser than heter?
Only one piece fell. I just don't know.
I just don't know which one fell in.
Which one fell?
Which one fell? Yeah, which one? The Isser or the heter fell?
One remains on wherever it was. One remains above. I just don't know if the remaining one is the or the heter, and which one. Right.
So we made an assumption that the heter is the one that fell into the gdera. So in that case, even if the Isser is greater than the heter in the gdera, it's still okay. Why? Because who says the Isser fell in to begin with? So the shach is the only one, I think, that is matter in that case to have more Isser than heter.
So
otherwise,
we have only one kedera.
Right, exactly. Case number 2, only one kedera. But everybody else pretty much follows what the Mechaber says in Sif Beis, that this whole chiddush of assumption involves only a case where you have 50-50, not more. Otherwise, we won't allow for this. And we learn it. We learn it. That was the famous Gemara whether we compare this to Mikvaot, or it's a special, or if Taaruvot is a separate din. If Taaruvot is a separate din that you say toilin, do we allow for Isser to be more than heter? And the Ra'ah says yes. The Rajva is the one that says no. Remember, there's a machlokes, it's Rishonim. The Ra'ah says, listen, if you're telling us that the din of Taaruvot is not like Mikvaot, where we learned that there's a din of you have to leave it half. If this is a din of Sha'ani Oimer or Toilin, why can't I have Roiv Isser? So the Rashba says, no, we never allowed for more than 50-50. Even though for the Gemara it's not so clear, depending on which teretz you follow. But the machlokes is on teretz number 2. Teretz number 2 of the Gemara says over there that Taaruvot is a special din of Sha'ani Toilin, and it's not like Mikvaot, where we learned that you have to, remember, you threw orange juice, you got water, orange juice, water, half of it is left. So, maybe half of it is what you need. No. Sha'anu Toilin is a different din. Or is it the same din? It's just a different way of looking at it because it's a Taaruvot. Alright, so that's a machlokes. But we paskin that you have to have at least 50-50 in order to make this assumption. Now, so all of this, very important, all of this is only in an Isser D'Rabbanan. Imachaticho himi Isser D'Rabbanan. The Mechaber said in Sif Aleph, then we allow for what we've just learned in Sif Aleph and Sif Beis. Going into Sif Gimel, Hoya ha'Isser shel Torah, if the Isser is of a Torah, Isser and Isser D'Oraisa, ain't toilin lehakel. There's no more free lunches, they say in English. Yeah. Ain't toilin lehakel loymar letoicha Isser nofal ad sheyeheter rabo al ha'Isser kedei shetitzbatel betoicha midivrei Torah. So that it should be cancelled out midin Torah. In other words, what's midin Torah? You need at least roiv. So this big chiddush of toilin, only in the Isser D'Rabbanan.
But if you have a roiv, then the roiv doesn't help you with the Rabbanan Isser where you need.
It does.
The roiv D'Oraisa only is battle D'Oraisa. This is where the Rabbanan you would see.
It still helps you.
So here you can say toilin on the state of the
Exactly. Yeah, very good. So Elyo Isser shel Torah ein toilin lehakel loymar letoicha Isser nofal ad sheyeh heter rabba la'Isser kedei shetitzbatel betoicha midivrei Torah. So very good what you said. Thank you for inserting that. In other words, don't think you don't say it at all. You do say it legabe what? Legabe the Rabbanan. You're safe that you don't need the 60 that the Rabbanan may require of you, but since at least you have the roiv, you're safe because with the raisa it's bottle. So you can still use toiling in an Isser D'Oraisa, but you have to have roiv. Is that clear?
So that's the whole difference. You need roiv or you don't need roiv.
Right.
The Rabbanan you don't need roiv, and you can say toiling. The Raisa you need roiv, and then you can toil.
Right. Exactly. Pretty much. Yeah. That would be the difference. Yeah. All right. So this din, by the way, of Isser Torah would apply to all 3 tziyon that we had. Any one of the 3. Right? We had 1, 2, 3 scenarios of either 2 kteros in 2 pieces, one gdera, 2 pieces, or 2 gderas and 1 piece of Isser. Either one, if you have an Isser Torah, the Isser Torah would require that you at least have Roiv in order to apply the heter of Toilim. Okay, let's see Sif Daled. One more Sif for today. Hoya heter Rabba Isser. Let's say you do have heter Rabba Isser, Kedishis Batal Betoichem Medivin Torah, Midin Torah. Toilim Lehakel. Then you make the assumption to be Meiko. Ketzat. Shtei Kderos Achas Shel Basar Shchuto ve'Achas Shel Nevela. So you have one kosher pot that has regular kosher meat, and you have one that's Nevela. Ve'noflo Chaticha Nevela letoch Achas Mehen, and a piece of Nevela, Isser Torah, right? Fell into one of them. Ima heter shebekderes a heter rabok tzas. It's only a little bit more. Hachatichas Nevela. Torah lehakel. While if you should dvar Torah min b'minoi botol b'roiv. Isn't that right? We already know that. The mina Torah, min b'minoi is botol b'roiv. Ela chachomim shechachomim yisrichu shishim. Chachomim are the ones that required shishim. Hoyu shtei akderos mimin echad. Let's say the 2 pots had the same kind. Ve'isur mimin acher. Oh, min b'sheino minoi. The Isser is of a different kind. Ein toilin lehakel ad sheyirbe haheter shishim al ha'Isser.
So then you don't need toilet anymore.
Right? You're not saved. Not exactly, but we will see.
You need toilet.
Why? In other words, now you would require 60 if it's min b'sheino minoi, because mid'oraisa you need 60. Does toilet still help? It's a good question.
What is toilet accomplished now that you have 60?
You tell me. Think about it.
6 is mevatel.
What did we say before?
Okay, maybe the Hashuv or something like that.
Lechora. So that's a very good point. I didn't think about it, by the way. I didn't think about that, but it's a very good point. And I would say that it would. Toilet still would help by double choshev. So that's very good. Very good. You hear that? There, Ilan has a good point. That lechora, would toilet still help in any way? And it would. It did help before by double choshev, even though by the Rabbana double choshev, it's not bottom. The chaticha really skabed, but these are all the Rabbanans, that's the thing. Right. Since these are all the Rabbanan, toilet for sure helps. So, in other words, in a sense, we're back into the Rabbanans. Yeah, the Chari would still help. That's pshat. Because in the Doraisa, all it does is it helps me that I don't need Shishim, which is also the Rabbanan. In other words, I cannot get away from the Doraisa. As the Shach pointed out, that the foundation of this whole het is still based on a Safik D'Rabbanan Lekula. Right. That's the foundation. However you want to look at it, even though the Taz has a different way of looking at it, it's a big Chidush, right? And we learn it out from Truma. I mean, we do learn it out from Truma. And there's various, svaras as to how it works. I mean, we've covered it in the past. It's a Chidush. Either way, it's a Chidush. But the point here is that it still revolves around the D'Rabbanan. So the Bekor for Seif Dalet is from the Gemara in Psochim, the Gabe Isur Shenisar Beheter, and the problem with the Isur over there that was mixed in the Heter is that there is a Kedei Achilas Pras. And if you remember very, very long ago, when we started learning Taaruvot, the problem of the Kedei Achilas Pras presents a problem. Of course, there's a machloikis, and what is and how do you run into a problem with Kedei Achilas Pras? Nonetheless, it does present a problem. So the Gemara's maskan over there is that if it's there, the intitzulim with the bottom in a Torah, and it's only the Rabbanan Isser, then you can for sure apply the heter of Toilin, Lekula, and say Shani Oimer. So that's the Gemara in Psachim and Dalet. Yeah, so that's where it's important to remember that the Taz speaks about it, and the Shach in the Klolim of Sfex Feke, that if it's an Isur Torah and it's Galgele Isur D'Rabbanan, it wouldn't help us, because it started off as an Isur D'Oraisa, that is Galgele, then it became a D'Rabbanan. Masha'inkin over here, the Chidush is that Toilin is a bigger Kula. And because it's a bigger Kula, even though you have a situation here over the Oraisa, something starts off as a deraisa, and in the Taaruvot it becomes a derabanan. Even though in Ochinami you don't say Safek derabanan lekula ordinarily on this, Toilin you do. Toilet accomplishes what the sex taker could not accomplish. It was just very interesting. Okay, so what we're left with is like this. Remember, the Shach spoke about two chatichas. Two chatichas that before they fell in, or before one of them fell in, whatever, they got mixed up together. And there was a question if we have to be machmir or not on the two chatichas. Most poskim don't appear to be machmir in the case of the two people. But the Shach wanted to be machmir in case number 2. The two were mixed. Then now each one is a vadai iser. Vadai iser is falling in. You don't have the heter. So that was back then when we spoke about an iser d'Rabbanan. What would be the case if now we're talking about an iser d'Oraisa? You hear? Would everybody agree to the Shach? Remember the Shach saying that it's also iser vadai. It's because it's chad bechad, is not bottle. But and that was only ligabe an isur d'Rabbanan, which is what Nechaber was discussing. But now we're talking about isur d'Oraisa right now. That's what we're talking about right now. That the klal of toilin still applies, just that you need roiv. Fine. So let's now take the example of the shach. The example of the shach where you have two pieces. Okay? In Yitzir number 2, we have a gder of heter, and you have two pieces. One is a nevela. It's Kentucky Fried Chicken. No? Kentucky, is that what it's called?
There is such a thing.
There is. Anyway, it doesn't have an ashgacha. Not yet. Right?
Maybe in Kentucky. But
yeah. Right. And you have, now the reason I say is because they say, McDonald's, they've given ashgachas on it.
In Israel.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So you have here two pieces. One is a vadai treif piece d'oraisa, not a d'Rabbanan, right? And the other one is a kosher piece. And they got mixed together. Would everybody now agree with the shach? Or does that make any difference? Now it's an isur d'oraisa being mixed together, one with one, not an isur d'Rabbanan. So this is an interesting question that I saw brought down.
So in other words, now even kosher piece, due to having become mixed with Asur piece, has become a Isur d'Oraisa.
Yeah. So I saw somebody bring down, I didn't see it inside, but I saw someone bring down Rabbi Kiva Eger. If you check the Bad Shulchan thing, the Bad Shulchan brings it. He could be. Rabbi Kiva Eger would say this one is Asur too, because this would qualify as an Isur d'Oraisa being nisgalgel into an Isur d'Rabbanan.
What's the Isur d'Rabbanan here?
That's later on.
Uh-huh.
Not initially, you're right. Initially, no. But later on, it's still a form of gilgul. In other words, you want to say, oh, well, now we have a taruvos. No. But this is already an isur d'oraisa, potentially. Being nisgalgel into an isur d'Rabbanan. In other words, even though what we're saying is this isur d'oraisa will be batel b'roiv once you have roiv. Fine. We're not talking about not the roiv issue. We're talking about the whole heter of toilin. And the whole heter of toilin, at that point when we're dealing with toilin, we're dealing with the d'Rabbanan. We're saying toilin. So this would be an isur d'oraisa being nisgalgel into the Rabbanan, and he would answer it. If it's not
what
nisar,
was the circumstance now where we say, when the Isur d'Oraisa fell into the Taaruvot,
right?
We would say toilet. There must be another additional.
No,
step.
we still say toilet. We just need roiv. Remember, right? We still say toilet. It still helps us that you don't need shishi.
We know for a certainty Isur d'Oraisa. We talk about with fell into the Taaruvot, or
yeah, we talk about.
So we know for a certainty it fell into the Taaruvot.
No. I'm sorry. Well, it all depends. The case that we're talking about right now with Rabbi Kiva Eger would be case number 2, where you have the heter and the isur, two pieces being mixed together. You don't have one piece; you have two. Okay. Lechora, it could be even in tzir number 1. You also, in that case, you also have two pieces. We had a Pri Megadim, which was very interesting. What was the Pri Megadim's question? You had a Pri Megadim of an additional scenario where you have two gderes and two chatichas, and one of them fell in. One of the chatichas fell in, and one of them was left behind. He wanted to say perhaps this is a typical sfek sfeika, right? Safek.
Who says that
it fell in?
The
Isur fell, and even if you say the Isur fell in, maybe
it falls into the
right. He on that one he's in a tzorech. A very interesting question.
Why tzorech? Would see this
You tell me why.
Maybe it's not a guf echad.
Right. It could. It's a question. I have to look at it again. There was a problem.
Because the first suffix is which one fell.
Right.
Now the second suffix, where did it fall in?
Yeah. There's various questions whether this would qualify for a sfek seika. Very interesting. But in this case, where you have chad bechad being mixed, and we're talking about an Isur D'Oraisa, Rabbi Akiva Eiger says that this may be like a typical Isur D'Oraisa being galgal into a D'Rabbanan, and therefore it would not qualify for toilin. We would not be able to use toilin for that. We would not be able to use the leniency of the D'Rabbanan here. You don't say that on a D'Oraisa falling into D'Rabbanan, Safek D'Rabbanan Lekula. But it looks like not everybody agrees with him. The crazy placey would be matir. Why? Because he says, the crazy placey seems to be saying that once everything falls into the taruvos, and the only question here is on a derabanan, that's the question that we're evaluating, and you still can say toilin. Since in the end, Sof he says, in the end, what are we evaluating? Here we're evaluating a question in a derabanan. Okay, you have a Safek D'Oraisa. Even if it's a real D'Oraisa, I mean, there's some logic to it. Even if it would be a real Isser, just that we don't know where it fell in, we say as long as you have Roiv, it's okay. So why would Rabbi Akiva Eiger be Machmer?
See, that's what I don't... I understand very well the second position in place here.
Yeah.
That I can see.
Yeah.
But the being Machmer in such a situation, I'm not...
Because remember, the Shach was Machmer in Chad Bechad, even in an Isser D'Rabbanan, to say that this is a Vada Isser. You don't have any more the leniency of saying, I don't know which one fell in. I'll tell you why, actually. The Rabbi Akiva Eiger basically, since we're following scenario number 2 at least, you only have one K'dera. That's what it is. You only have one K'dera, the K'dera Heter. I mean, if it's Chad Bechad, it's the Vada Isser. You don't have any more. Why would this be different than a piece of a regular Isser D'Oraisa falling into a Taaruvos? You need Shishin, not Roiv. To allow me to use the heter of Anu Toilin, that it could be that the heter fell in, therefore I only need Roiv and I'm safe and I don't need Shishim, I don't have that because it's Chad Bechad. So you could understand that either way. Yeah. So you see how it may make a difference if the two got mixed up together or not. At least according to the Shach in the case of the Rabbanon, and according to Rabbi Akiva Eiger in the case of the Raisa.
I have Chad Bechad now in the pot.
In the two pieces, before they fell in.
What do I have in the pot?
You have heter. It's a K'dera of
but
heter.
The heter is more heter?
Yeah, more. It's more. It's only roiv, but there's no shishim.
So I have roiv.
I have roiv, and I would need shishim with the rabbanan.
So the roiv certainly takes care of the Isda or Raisa.
Yes, it does. It does. We always need the roiv with the Raisa.
So that I don't understand it. That I really don't understand it. Look.
Right.
I don't know whether the heter piece or the is piece fell into the pot. I only have pot.
Right.
If it was the is piece and it's an Isser D'Oraisa, I have roiv in the pot. So the Oraisa, even if for sure the Isser piece fell in, I can eat.
The question is if I can use toilin. That's the only question.
Well, wait a second. So we'll get to that. Now, the Gabe, the Isser Oraisa, if I know for sure that the Isser piece is the one that fell, and there's only one pot, so it fell into that pot.
Right.
Since I have Roiv Heter, the Oraisa, I can eat it.
Yes, the Oraisa you can.
So my only remaining problem is the Rabbanandika problem.
Right, that's all.
So if I only remember problem is the Rabbanandika problem, then what is now that argument that says, even though I'm only dealing with the Rabbanan problem, I can't say to... What is the argument? I understand it's being made...
It's a form of Gilgul.
It's being anchored in the fact that it's a D'Oraisa.
Right.
But I took care of the D'Oraisa. I'm not removing the D'Oraisa through toilet. The D'Oraisa was removed through D'Oraisa again of Meriv.
Yeah, but you want to use a heter of toilet. So
but the heter of toilet is going to Gabe the Issa Rabbanan here.
Right.
So why shouldn't I be able to use the toilet and Issa Rabbanan?
Yeah, well, because you obviously don't have as much of a suffix anymore. When do we say toilet? When you have enough of a suffix. It could be either or. It could be either or.
It is either.
Yeah. But once, that's the Chiddush, that not everybody agrees with, but that's the Chiddush here, according to the Shach there, and according to Rabbi Akiva Eiger here, that if it's already Nis'ar Chad Bechad, it's already a Vada Isser. That's all he's saying. It's like a Vada Isser. You don't really have...
I thought he was making it the Din Issa D'Oraisa, and not the Rabbanan.
No, what we're talking about right now in Issa D'Oraisa in these last few seasons.
Yes.
The piece is of Isser is a D'Oraisa, not a Rabbanan.
Right.
But it's mixed Chad Bechad before it got into the Gdera.
So if Chad doesn't remove the Yisr.
No, it doesn't remove the issue, but it now has become, each one of them has lost its suffix. It's no longer as big as a suffix as it could have been before had it not been mixed up. Because when they're not mixed, I say, well, it could be either or, which makes the whole situation more lenient. Because I make an assumption, you know what? It was this one that fell in. When they are nis'aref chad b'chad, apparently, according to those who are machmir, they are becoming one of the same. It's a vada isur, so I cannot use the leniency anymore of toilin. No, it's the vada isur. It's the real isur going in, regardless. In other words, according to the Rabbi Kibbeh, according to the Chumrah, or according to the Shach, even in the Rabbanan, scenario number 2, he wouldn't allow for it. But everybody else seems to be makel on this, or at least in the Hefset. I mean, we will see. There's various additional situations that we'll cover next week, where, you also make this assumption of of each one going to the less of a problem area. In other words, to the Vada Isur, because of the Rabbanan. It's only because of the Rabbanan situation. But if you have an Isur D'Oraisa, you're always going to have to come out with a roiv to be mevatel the Isur. In other words, like you said before, the toilin always helps, but you still have to have a roiv D'Oraisa to mevatel the real Isur.
And here we had a roiv D'Oraisa.
Right.
That was my point.
Yeah. But the chiddush is that even though you have the roiv, you need the shishim. It won't help it. Why? Because apparently, according to him, there's a form of gilgul D'Oraisa into the Rabbanan, that's what we know. That's perhaps what needs a little bit more clarity. Something that is nisgalgel still retains its koyach of being an Isur D'Oraisa. It does not lose out just because now in the problem or the new setting that has been that presents itself, it's a D'Rabbanan question now. No. It still has its koyach of being Isur D'Oraisa. This is of course something that was discussed in Spek Sveika, and it can happen occasionally. It doesn't happen a lot. That a D'Oraisa, it begins as a D'Oraisa and it is somehow transformed. In eggs, there's a similar problem. In eggs, remember we slightly discussed it with blood, whether it's on the yellow or on the white, depending if it's eggs that can be fertilized. Obviously, those are the problems of D'Oraisa. And then it gets mixed up. You crack various eggs.
Wasn't that also?
No, that's a separate. That's whole eggs. Mm-hmm. Here we're talking about cracked eggs. And the question, if it's on the yellow or on the white, what if it's on the yellow? Can you remove the other yellows? It's a question Hill is based on. So there the Taz speaks about a D'Oraisa being this galgal into a question now that is a D'Rabbanan. So here, Toilin is better. He had a question about it, because here it's also a form of D'Oraisa coming into a D'Rabbanan. Nonetheless, the Chidush is that we do say Toilin. Whenever we say toilin, it doesn't affect the fact that something may have started off as a deraisa. So the Rekiva Eger is a chiddush, because they start off as deraisa. Then why be machmir? So what? Eventually, we're evaluating a situation which is the rabbanan, and we're trying to say toilin. So he says, no, here I'm not going to say toilin because it's already not this battle. It's already each piece is a deraisa. So that's a chiddush. Not everybody agrees with that, because in the end, as the Creation Place says, the whole thing, as we're looking at it, in the end, we're evaluating, did it fall here or did it not fall here? Which piece was it? We're still looking at we still have the same question. Which piece is it? You're right, they're not bottle, but don't I still have the same question, which piece fell in? So it's still in the question in the Rabbana. So we say, yes, in Nachinam I need roy if it's a deraisu, but I don't need shishim. So anyway, that's the suffix. Okay, we'll stop over here and continue next week.